Hello, old chap.
How's it going? It's been a while.
Very well, how are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, not too bad at all. All
Good.
changed
Been a
since
while.
we last, well, did a face to face. Like, well, by video. So
Absolutely. Ups and downs of life, eh?
yeah. How was Italy then?
Italy was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. Bergamo, first time I've been there. I was
Hmm.
just in and out, but great part of the country. Yeah.
In America the week before?
Yeah. Flew around here and there. Florida, Texas, Alabama.
Mm.
Sound. People that believe in freedom and believe in Christ. It's all good.
Yeah. It was all related to the church. That was what the
What?
America was.
Yeah, I had a few speaking engagements and they were all lined up together
Yeah.
to make it easier rather than coming back and forth. So I did some speaking, some preaching. It was good fun. Surrounded by good people.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
And like you say, free speech. It's obviously the thing which is, well, we can mention about GB News, the home of free speech, or what it was. But then obviously it's not turned out to be like that, has it? No, especially with what Lawrence, the thing, and then obviously you being the loyalty, which I take my hat off to you for that, because the loyalty, friends, loyalty is more important than anything. I think loyalty is any human being is the most important thing.
Yeah, no, loyalty is important. I think it's under appreciated and under recognized in today's society. We need to bring it back to the norm,
Mm.
along with integrity, dignity, honor. Things that we used to hold as high standards as Englishmen and Welshmen, Scotchmen.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And Irishman, yeah, Northern Irishman, yeah. So can I just say, because I know I'm going to put this in print for when I get in print, I've also got the videos, but in print for Christmas. So I want to touch on about religion and things like that, if you don't mind,
Oh yeah.
because I think Christmas is obviously we live in a Christian country, you know,
Well, yeah.
but I think Christmas time is very watered down now because what Christmas stands for, Christian, that it's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, but it's always a case of we pampered to other religions. If I'll being honest, we do. Than we do with the Christian the other Christmas time. And we're losing that touch. I know with Christianity in the UK, there's a lot of people not going to the church as much as they used to. It's dwindling, especially in the younger ages. If I'm I'm probably correct in saying that, and you've obviously witnessed it yourself.
Yeah, church numbers are declining, and but they have been for the past 100 years. Unfortunately,
Mm.
I think the Big C Church in this country has decided to focus on other things rather than the core message of the gospel, which is a shame because that's what people need to hear, and that's what the church is supposed to be about. But they're focusing on worldly issues from a worldly perspective, and it's very disappointing.
And how do you see it when you've been around the world? So you've been to, like I say, you've been to Italy, you've just been to America. How does it compare? Because I've not, I've brought up um, uh, Methodist for a short while through my nan, and then I went to a normal state school. But I've not got any faith. I'm a atheist. That's just me. Everyone's got their own, but I still recognize beliefs and things like that. And but how did you see it when you were in America and Italy compared to here?
It's different wherever I go. Obviously, there are more churches in Italy. Uh, that doesn't necessarily mean there are more people going to church. America is very different because there are more denominations.
Hmm.
So you've got Anglicanism, Methodism, general Protestantism, non-conformism, of course, Roman Catholicism. They've got everything over there, a bit of a flavor of this, flavor of that, which I think is probably also not very helpful when people just want to go to church. It's like, okay, so what kind of church do I have to go to? What do they believe, and are they sticking to their beliefs, or are they becoming liberals? And it's difficult to find a church that is decent and has sound teaching, even though there are so many. And then I've been wider afield to some of the Scandinavian countries where they don't have God at all anymore, and they're very secular, and that's difficult there too. So I think all across the West we're facing the issue of a lack of faith. That, as I've been talking about quite recently, it's impossible to have a society that is built on nothing. And Western society was built on Christian values, and then removing those values and imposing secularism just means that there's a void, and that void has to be filled with something. And it looks at the moment like it's being filled with woke or wokeism and Islam. And then so the West has to decide, do we want to be woke? Do we want to be Islamic? Or do we want to return to Christianity?
It's yeah, I know, and it inflames a lot of debate, doesn't it? Whether you're on the TV or whether you're putting in print or not, and you speak to the person in the street, you've got to sort of tread lightly because you just don't know how they're going to take it. and you obviously, I know you'll have more of an what's the word, hatred aimed at you on social media than I do. I mean, I still get some, but I know, and you deal with it in an amazing way. I have to say, I do read when you reply sometimes. They are so funny. But you, to the point, you.
Yeah, because people, it's not me that they hate. It's the ideas that I'm espousing. So it's Christ that they hate. They have an issue with Christianity, and some people are bold enough to make that explicit, but a lot of people aren't, and they keep it very implicit and direct their hatred towards me, which is fine. My Bible teaches me that Christ was hated before I was, so I'm following in his footsteps as we are called to do.
Yeah. Can you just tell me about your journey then to becoming, obviously, you're now a deacon, aren't you? Is that right? Am I right? So obviously when we last spoke, you weren't any, you were obviously.
Okay. Yeah, so as we record, I'm a deacon. Next week, I'm being ordained a priest. So when this goes out, I'll be priested. Okay. Yeah, the journey has been long and arduous, but in ways that it had to be. There's something sanctifying about suffering, and our journeys are supposed to include an amount of suffering to sanctify us, to help purify us, and to help form us. People will say it builds character, and there's truth behind that. We can't avoid suffering, and I think that's another thing that the woke or the liberals try to put forward, is that you can live a life without any suffering, and without any offense, without anything at all. And that's not unrealistic, and actually it means that people don't have any resilience, and mental health actually plummets as a result. But yeah, no, my personal journey has been interesting in different ways, in that it never seemed to go to plan, but then when man makes plans, God laughs. So I was originally sent to be ordained in the Church of England, as you know. I went to seminary in the Church of England. I completed that. At the completion, it seemed that I wasn't going to be sent back to London to be ordained a deacon. And the CV left it too late for me to really go anywhere else. And I didn't really see a future in the CV at that point. I thought, this is clearly a direction they're heading in terms of they were taking on board woke values. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to become a priest. And then an Orthodox body of Anglicans reached out to me and said, well, there is a home for Anglicans outside of the Church of England. And I wasn't really aware of that. And so they've taken me on board, and that was great. And so I've done my year as a deacon in the Free Church of England as part of the GAFCON umbrella. I went out to GAFCON in Rwanda this year to meet up with the primates that represent 85% of Anglicans all around the world, which was really energizing and rejuvenating, meeting that many Orthodox people who are really sound, and reminding us that Anglicanism is bigger than just the Church of England. There are millions of people all around the world who are Anglican, but they've managed to maintain their orthodoxy. They've managed to maintain their truth of the faith, which we seem to be losing in England, well, in the West in general, really. So that was nice. That was good. But yeah, then I'm being ordained by the Old Catholics in November, and I will continue my ministry in my parish church in Harleston with the Free Church of England. So there's a bit of a collaboration there of communions.
Yeah. Had you not decided to go to the Anglican Church, would you have maybe lost, I don't want to say you lost your faith, but do you think you would have lost the motivation to stay with it? Do you know what I mean? And try to become ordained and all the rest. Do you think that may have happened? Because I know with the Church of England, it's very, like you said, well, you may not say, but I can say, but it's it's gone very woke, and and it's just, yeah, it's just I'm not going to swear, but it's gone very woke, but do you think yourself you may have just lost interest, if you hadn't gone down through the Anglican Church?
No, so I remained Anglican. I just didn't remain in the Church of England. So I
Okay.
remained in the broader Anglican body,
Yeah.
uh, the wider Anglican communion. But the Church of England itself, it just seemed like the default route, because in England we have an established church, obviously, and that's how it's always been.
Okay.
However, it wasn't until my ordination, or the approach of my ordination, that I realized just how woke it had become, and had to consider, would I be able to operate within these bounds? Like, preaching the gospel should be our main calling, and administering the sacraments. But the Church of England didn't seem, at least to me, to agree with that. They wanted to talk about critical race theory, about queer theory, about gender theory, about what I see as neo-Marxist ideologies, more than they wanted to talk about Christ. And I find that very sad. But it's not an environment that I could operate within. I don't believe in communism. I believe in Christ, and therefore I had to make a decision.
And where do you think it all stems from then with the Church of England? Because they trying to please. I don't know who they're trying to please, but they're not pleasing the followers of the Church of England, because people are turning against them, and that's probably you're making it worse for them. But for the press, they're trying to be, oh, they're doing this, like I say, queer theory and all the rest, and critical race theory. But it's like, I don't know. I can't even say it. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to swear because I'm in your presence, but you know what I mean. It's ludicrous. It is ludicrous what they're doing.
Yeah, it's just like feeding the crocodile, isn't it? Trying
Yeah,
to appease the woke mob, but you can never appease the woke mob. And the weird thing is that the church is supposed to be there for Christians. The church is supposed to be there for sinners, to help us repent and find faith in Christ, and to receive the sacraments. It's a very simple duty and obligation that the church has, but it's trying to appear worldly. It's trying to comfort people who aren't Christians, who haven't acknowledged their sin, rather than lead them to Christ for conversion. It's trying to say, we are accepting of your views too. We are inclusive of your views too. And it's like, well, no, not really. The church doesn't have a duty to take on board views that are not Christian. It has a duty to proclaim the gospel to the world, to disciple the nations.
in with yourself, and now obviously the path that you're on, have you come across anything within the Anglican Church that you're doing now that they've said, well, you can't say this, you can't do that? It's nothing like that at all.
No, no, thankfully. So the body that I joined is Orthodox in those ways. And when people complain to my bishops or my general secretary or whatever, they just send a reply back saying, look, Calvin is preaching the Christian message on this. You might not agree with it, but that's what the Christian message is, when in terms of gender or sexuality or whatever it is that people often complain about. And even if it's something political, to say, well, we don't necessarily agree with Calvin, but that's his free speech.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with him either. And I think that's the way it should be, rather than in the CV it would have been, no, you have to agree with us in terms of race and gender and sexuality and issues that are worldly and not necessarily biblical. And that would have been very, very difficult.
It's good that they do that. I mean, I've had some of my views have gone out and in print, and I've had people write into the editors, both a couple of mags, and complained, and then it's gone to this point where I've had to stop it because it could affect advertising.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Freedom of speech, it's my opinion, but you just have to. And I'm not going to curtail any of this, but I've got to tread carefully, let's just say, because living in Wales, I'm very, very anti-Welsh Labour, and I'm very vocal about it, and I always will be, because I detest them with a passion, because living in Wales, it's an absolute joke at the moment.
I'm so sorry.
But yeah, I know. But it is, yeah, and you just have to be careful what I have to put in print, whether I can say like what I want in videos and things, but when it comes to putting in print. But going back to yourself, I mean, obviously the bishops and all them, they just say it's like your freedom of speech, you speak, preaching the gospel and whatever. But it's good that they do that, but I guarantee there's been so many people that have written in or sent emails in to try to castigate you for anything you may have said on GB News or on social media over the last few years. I mean, for me, it's probably two handfuls of people. For you, we're probably talking a couple of thousand.
Yeah, people complain all the time. Sometimes directly to me, sometimes to my church, sometimes to my bishops. People complain often, but it's again, it comes back to that lack of resilience. People are not able to hear things they disagree with anymore. And I don't ever try to cause offense. Sometimes the things I say, people find it offensive, but that's quite often, to be honest, more likely their issue than mine. I'm trying, at least, to proclaim the gospel, to speak the truth as revealed to us through the scriptures. And that can seem scandalous to a modern world. But the so-called liberal progressives on the left, the people that I would describe as woke, always talk about diversity and inclusion and equality, but they're not diverse enough to take on board a diverse set of views and opinions that differ to their own. They're not inclusive enough to welcome views that are different to their own, and they're not equal in terms of giving my views equality with theirs. So they're hypocrites, really.
And it's going back to the old adage where if you find something offensive and you're on the TV or on the radio, you can just turn it off or turn channel. But they don't.
It's not about them. This is the truth of the matter. These people that really, really cannot. The people that hate myself and what I'm talking about, and people like me. What it is the reason they complain is to get us cancelled, and that's not because they cannot stand what we're saying, although they cannot stand what we're saying. It's because they don't want other people to hear what we're saying, because they know that if the truth is exposed, people will see the truth, they'll hear the truth. However, what the woke lobby is passing as truth is a lie, and it's twisted truths, and most people see it and think, well, no, that's not true. There aren't 99 genders, or a man can't become a woman, or basic truths of life that people see. The woke lot cannot argue with logic and reason and fact. Therefore, they want to shut down any opposing debate.
And can I just ask you about GB News? Going back many months now, when they had, I think it was Ofcom, they issued a warning or whatever it was. And I know you got invited into an office to have a chat, let's just say, about maybe things that were being said on this channel. And did you know that then the writing was on the wall? Where I'm not saying obviously you didn't get you told them you were going to stick with Lawrence and all the rest and loyalty, but did you know? But even then, the writing was on the wall that the home of free speech wasn't going to be the home of free speech because of the Ofcom.
No, but what was interesting about that is that I tweeted that I was in an Ofcom training meeting, not thinking anything. I think this is what all broadcasters have to do. And I got told by my boss to take the tweet down. And I very rarely delete my tweets. And that was a moment of, I'm going to have to think here. Do I go along with this or not? Like, what is this an element of free speech, or is this an element of something serious, like not bringing the company into disrepute? But how would that be the case? I'm just showing that we go to our training and take it seriously. I didn't really understand why they wanted me to delete that tweet at the time, but it was part of a wider conversation in that we were all being asked to redo our Ofcom training because of the whole Mark Stein situation, because they were petrified. The company is petrified of Ofcom. And it's a great shame because it does hamper what they're able to do. But no, I saw the writing on the wall a long, long time before that. When I had a debate on television, one of the first weeks I was presenting, actually, with a Dr. Simon Clark. And I wanted to ask him about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and other things. I wanted to find out if there were any possible options, alternatives to the COVID vaccines, which people were questioning whether they were safe and efficable. And I thought, well, that's an important conversation to be having in the press. If the press can't have these conversations, who can? It's our job to hold the powers that be to account and to make sure that the public are aware of all the issues and alternatives. And he shut me down, and he pretty much screamed at me, it doesn't work, ivermectin doesn't work. And I wanted to address the evidence that I'd come across and ask a scientist that he was supposed to be whether that evidence was valid or not. And I wanted to get to the crux of the matter. I didn't want to just be shut down. I didn't think that was very scientific of him. Anyway, the interview went down a storm online, and our viewers were of the similar mindset to myself, in that, well, if he's a scientist, he should address this rather than just panic and clam up and close down. Anyway, he complained to Ofcom because he wasn't happy that I asked him questions, which was what I thought my job was. And one of my bosses called me up and said, Calvin, I have not seen the interview, but I don't think you handled it very well. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay, we need to talk when I get into the office. And when I got into the office, I said, look, you are the expert. I don't know television. I am a commentator. I speak on issues that I think are important, and I ask questions. But you know television, you know Ofcom. I'm willing to take your advice and guidance on this. But do not tell me that I was wrong before you've seen it. Like, watch it and then tell me how I was wrong and help me improve. Like, to cast judgment before watching it yourself, I find it very unprofessional. And it just showed me how scared they were just to have a complaint coming in from Ofcom. Like, straight away, they clamped down on Ofcom's side rather than my side, or rather than try to back me up. I was very disappointed by that. But that made me realize from day one of presenting that actually the company doesn't necessarily support free speech, because it's impossible to support free speech within the bounds of Ofcom, the government arm's length quango that regulates our speech.
I saw that one as well, and I thought you handled it really well. And I was really annoyed at that guy, how he came back at you. But it's like, he's a scientist, and what's the one rule about science? You question the science.
Well, you should.
You should, but unless it's by an Ofcom say you can't, then you can't, don't you? It's just. Well, no, I did think from then, I thought, okay, it's home free speech, and then it's like Ofcom comes in, and then I know when you've got the training and all the rest, and then obviously it went down back from there. There's a few good guys still on there presenting, but I don't know how they can still get away with something to say, like Neil and the rest. And
it's just Neil, really. I feel bad for him because he's by himself now.
He is.
There are some decent presenters there, but he's the only freedom fighter. He's the only one who's the truth seeker. He's the only one that actually is on a mission. Pretty much everyone else that's left there now are, careerists and people that are, presenting as a job rather than as an objective for a mission. So it's the difference between being a means to an end and being an end in and of itself. So I'm praying for Neil. I hope he manages to use the platform for good, as he has been doing, and that they don't clamp down too hard on him. Because, of course, they were planning to get rid of me, Neil, and Lawrence anyway. I'm sure there was a Bloomberg article out there that they're taking us off of broadcast and putting us onto online, because then we wouldn't have Ofcom breathing down our necks.
Would you ever go back then if that was an option where just be being online?
Would I ever go back to GB News?
Yeah, no.
Not with the current management, no.
No, okay. And what if current management changed and then it became just like online, so you can get around the Ofcom sort of thing? Would you go back?
I believe in the mission, and this is the problem. This is what I stood up for when I was standing up for Lawrence and Dan. I said, I believe in the mission of GB News. It's just a shame that our leaders don't seem to. So if we had leaders that did, then I'd consider it. But at the present, absolutely not.
Do you think it will change then in the short term with the GB News?
I think it has to. If you look at the ratings,
like a stone.
Plummeting. Yeah. Every single week they're getting lower and lower. As we record this, the Tuesday ratings were the lowest in 6 months. And bear in mind, Tuesday is the show that this all kicked off on. It's the show that me and Lawrence were regularly on with Dan.
Yeah.
And without me, Lawrence and Dan, I've been monitoring the Tuesday ratings, and it's just been plummeting week after week. The week after we were suspended, the viewership halved. The week after that, it went down to a 10th. And like I say, as we record, it was that's a 6-month low. So it's a shame, because the project was important, the mission was important, but they're not adhering to it. So the viewers are like, well, you're not here for us because we thought you were different. We thought you were going to offer a different perspective and be a voice for the silent majority, and you are not doing that.
Yeah.
So
I thought that because I think I mentioned when we first spoke, I said I could see you having your own show on, and I think you mentioned GB News, and lo and behold, you did, and you got where you got to and where we are now, and and so do you think? Well, so what's next then for a media? Is there any shows lined up, or with anyone? Well, I know the BBC won't touch you. You'd have to pay them 10 million. BBC won't touch you. Like Sky won't touch you because of the Sly News the other week. That was a genius, by the way.
Thank you. Well, I invited Sky into my sitting room, and they just wanted to hound me. And it's like, just be fair and be, everyone else has to play the Ofcom game of due impartiality and balance. Why does Sly News and BBC not have to play that game? It's ridiculous. But in terms of what comes next in the media, I've had offers of different platforms, but I'm trying to discern what to do next. I might not even stay in the media, but if I do, in what way do I? Because it always comes down to how can I best use the platform for the mission that I'm on, and the mission that I'm on is God, and spreading His gospel and spreading His truth, and being a voice for the silent majority, and plugging that gap and offering a different perspective. All of these things are important. Standing up for free speech and small C conservative values, and bringing Christianity back into the public square. If I can do all those on a platform, then perhaps I'll consider it. But I'm thinking about it at the moment. And as we record this, I don't know where I'm going to be, but I'm focusing on my ordination, which is a week away. So that's the priority. focusing on my priestly orders, and then after that, I'll see what to do with the media ministry.
And where do you want to go after the next few weeks for when you've been ordained? Do you want to? What level would you like to get to in the church, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this is it. I have a calling to priestly ministry. So once I'm priested, that is me at my calling, and then it's just about putting it into practice. It's about administering the sacraments. It's about preaching the gospel, and so far I've been doing that in a parish ministry and a media ministry, and that's been bivocational.
Yeah.
Going forward, it might also be, but it might not. So I've got to discern on that and pray on that and find out where I'm being called to next, because it's no coincidence that I get fired from GB News, like, mere days before I get ordained to the priesthood.
Yeah. It's that's a calling, isn't it? But no, I wasn't sure if you were going to wanted to go abroad or something like that, because you could be called anywhere. It depends on.
Well, I mean, possibly. It's a difficult one. I'm always, I don't like London. I don't love London. I used to. I don't now. I hate it. I think it's horrible. It's been captured. But that's part of the reason I've stayed here, because I wanted to be part of the remnant and bringing it back around. But I don't know if there is enough of a remnant. I don't know if there are enough people standing up to try and bring it back around. I don't know if it's possible to change the minds and hearts of people in power. I don't know if London is lost. That's what I'm discerning on right now, actually, to be honest with you. Whether I stay here and fight, or whether I go somewhere else and fight with people that want to fight the good fight. Yeah, we'll see on that one.
And I know, obviously, living in London, I know obviously Lawrence is in London as well. I think Lawrence is South London or South, something like that anyway. I know it's south of the water, I think. So if you don't mind taking on his behalf, so how are you both dealing with anything? Do you come across any sort of issues in the street when you're walking around? Because obviously you're quite distinctive. I mean, everyone knows, you distinctive, your character, and you can recognize you from quite a distance away. Unless you're going to shave your head one day, I don't know. But
I am actually. I'm going to shave my head before I get priested.
Oh yeah.
So people might not recognize me as much, actually.
Seriously? Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I met Lawrence yesterday for lunch, and when we walk around London, we get recognized all the time. I think he tends to get more positive interactions than I do. I do get the majority of my interactions with people in the public are positive, but every now and then I get a negative one, and the negative ones tend to stick in your mind, unfortunately. That's just human nature. I arrived back in London earlier this week from my trip to Italy. The first person who spoke to me was a guy who goes, racist, xenophobe, and carries on walking. And I'm like, what? Are you a racist or a xenophobe? If so, you should be ashamed. If not, what are you talking about? And he carried on walking, and I turned around and walked my own way, and he's still shouting. I'm like, well, come, let's have a chat. Let's have a conversation. And he just carried on walking. I'm like, why shout abuse at people that you clearly disagree with? That, the whole premise there is that I'm a hater, I'm a racist, I'm a xenophobe. Like, if I'm the person that's hating, why is he the one that's hurling abuse? Like, people can never have enough self-awareness to realize that he was the one hating that situation. And if he thinks that I'm a bad guy, which I don't think I am, but if he thinks I am, maybe he should have a conversation with me and try to bring me around. But they don't ever, because, again, their arguments never stand up to scrutiny.
I know you will do that. You will have a conversation, I think, on some of your social media posts. So if you say you're wrong, or you may have got something right, you will admit, okay, maybe I've got, you will admit yourself, you may have got it wrong, and you're more than open to do that. But like you say, a lot of people want an argument. They'll still cause you this, and this. But then they'll be worse at you, shout at you, and thinking, well, who's the instigator here? Who's the, and it's just society of today, isn't it? And like say, London is too many people anyway, and there's too much. Yeah, like you say, I couldn't live there again. It's just, and for you and Lawrence to still be in London and just to deal with it all, I'll take my hat off to you both, so.
Cheers.
So I was going to say, what have you ever thought about, this is a bit of a random one, have you ever thought about you and Lawrence going around the UK doing a tour, if any venue would host you both, that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility.
Only because if you don't mind me interjecting, it's only because what you've said is you get a lot more positive communication when you're out and about, both of you around London, and so the majority is agreeing with you. If you being honest, if the minority is just a minority, they get the odd negative comment and it sticks in your head and it pisses you off. You don't mind me swearing, I apologize, but do you know what I mean? But the majority give you positive feedback, so that must prove to you both that the majority of people in agreement with you. So there was a need for you to, I think, to go on tour, if you don't mind me saying.
It's a fair point. I've been doing a lot of international speaking at the moment. Before that, I used to do a lot of university speaking in
Mm,
England,
mm.
and it was always a positive conversation. Even when people disagreed, it's usually um, a good debate. So maybe that's something we could think to do in the future. Who knows?
And I mean, I know we got this booked in for an hour, but I know I don't know, I could talk to you for 3 hours, but
That's all right.
I don't know. Yeah. But what happened to the lady? I know I sent the email initially. They went to one lady, then she left, didn't she? So it was just we got confused, didn't we? I think she got confused now.
Yeah, this is the thing. So I had Margaret to help me, but then Margaret left, and then I didn't know who she'd been speaking to and which conversations were half done. So actually, it made life more difficult than not having help in the first place. But yeah, I'm glad we managed to have a chat anyway because it's been too long.
Yeah, no. I'm honestly been looking forward to it for a while, mate. Honestly, so it's been an honor. As
But when you're back
always.
in London, give me a shout.
Yeah, I will do. I'm gonna get up there more often, because yeah, I need to. I will give you a shout, man. Honestly, it'd be nice to see you in person. Because we've done
Yeah,
this a few times, well, a couple of times now. So you're looking good though, man. I have to say.
thank you. I appreciate that.
So
Yeah,
how did well
honestly, I'm gonna shave this off, and I reckon I'll be unrecognizable to most people, and it'll be wonderful to just disappear.
you're not gonna put it on social media and keep it,
No, I will,
incognito?
but still, people won't recognize me out and about without the throw.
I've tried to visualize it now.